Hello, viewers, and thank you for joining me for another episode of The Chase Files. Today, I have a very special guest, and his name is Corey Greenidge, a candidate representing or contesting for the Democratic Labour Party in the area of Christchurch South. Raised by a single father, he took advantage of education provided to him at Milton Lynch, formerly the Water Street Boys School. He went to St. Michael's School and later the Combermere School. Mr. Greenidge entered the world of work at 18 years and spent 15 years as an accountant in the financial services sector. He holds a Bachelor's of Law degree, a Master's of Law degree in Corporate and Commercial Law, and is currently pursuing a Master's of Science in Energy Policy and Sustainable Development. As an attorney, he's spent several years advising clients on international cross-border financial transactions, mergers, acquisitions, and international corporate restructuring. He has served as a member of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission of Barbados for 5 years. During his tenure as commissioner, he was seconded to serve as election observer in missions throughout the Caribbean. He is on a quest to restore a balanced democracy that works for the people. But first, let me introduce you to Mr. Corey Greenidge.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here and taking time out of your busy campaign schedule to be here. So I know, tell me, how has it been going?
It has been going fantastic. As you know, this is my first time running in
Yes.
public office. And there are a lot of moments that you would not plan for, but
Yeah.
I have a fantastic team that
That's
is working with me.
excellent.
And it really has been going very well. I think the highlights have been meeting the people.
I think that's very important.
Yeah,
And the reception?
Reception has been fantastic. Again, in the midst of all that's happening, the real pleasure I have found is in meeting and chatting with people, the young people, old ladies who are very charmed.
Well,
by
the
my youth.
old ladies are going to love you. You're easy on the eye. Come on now.
Oh man, Stephanie, you're flattering me. But yeah, no, it has really been, and as you know, Christchurch South is a wonderful blend of commercial districts as well as residential
Yes.
homes. So the opportunity to go in and meet persons who are right there on their jobs. I spent, I believe, on Friday night just walking through Oistins,
Wow.
meeting a lot of the vendors, meeting a lot of the ones that ply their trade in Oistins. And it really has been a fantastic experience.
I'm really happy to hear that. Now, I know that viewers at home and people around the island may not know much about you. They may he just appeared out of nowhere, but you seem to be very focused. So I want to take some time to get to know a little bit about your background. Now, platforms often highlight the plight of single mothers. And something that stood out when I read your bio was that the first line read, raised by a single father.
Yes.
I'm talking about it and it gave me chills. I want you to take me back. What was life like?
Well, and this is probably the first opportunity I would get to speak about this
Okay.
publicly. I'm actually my life, I've never been in public life per se until my appointment to the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And even that post is not generally a public post. You don't
Yeah.
generally know who the commissioners
Yeah.
are. But my dad was very young when I was born.
Okay.
And so a handsome man as well. And he was basically thrust into being a single father. My mother had other kids as well, and back in the 70s, you know, it would be difficult. There were difficult times back then for your working class people.
Yeah.
So she loved me enough to make a decision that, you know, it was easier to have my father raise me
Raise
at
you.
the time. Why I often mention my dad is because he was a very disciplined, strict individual, and I benefited from that. Of course, as a child, you would not think that was, you know, the
And then you said he was young.
yeah.
So then taking on the role of a father at such a young age probably threw him, you know, he had to grow up really fast. Whereas his friends probably would have been, you know, out and about, chasing behind girls or whatever. His responsibility now, he's responsible for this little tiny tot
Correct.
that he now has to, you know.
Sure. I mean, we had the support of a nuclear family. Again,
Okay.
in the 70s, you know, it was your aunts and your grandmother and the
Yeah.
next door
And
neighbor
the
and the
next,
guy down the
yes.
street. Everybody,
It took the
you know,
village.
it took a village to raise a child. So he still was able to be a little bit out and
he,
about
he got a
chasing the
little
lady.
freedom. He got,
Yeah,
all
yes,
right.
yes, yes. But he did a fantastic job. There were a lot of ups and downs as a child, but you know, not more than usual. And that gave me what I think was a very solid background as an individual.
I think one of the takeaways there was that it actually took the village,
Yes.
and the village made a positive impact on you growing up and the man that you actually became.
Yes, I mean, if I would even harken back to my great grandmother, my father's grandmother. We used to call her Da at the time. And I have fond memories of her collecting her pension every 2 weeks. And for one of the first things she would do was to buy me a pack of Ovaltine biscuits, two apples, and she would probably put $5 in my hand. And every 2 weeks, like clockwork, I would go by Da and I would get my pack of Ovaltine biscuits, my two apples, and $5 in my hand. And that was, you know, that was life back then, you know. So it really was a real all of family effort
Yeah.
that I was able to experience as a child.
Now, moving forward, we're here now. We have parents who are younger. We have grandparents in their 30s and their 40s. You were fortunate enough to still have a support system growing up. But many kids nowadays, they don't have that. It's either the mother in the home struggling to pay the bills, or the father or a grandparent taking on the role to raise the child. And I think that the family structure in Barbados has changed significantly. So now we have effective, I think it was 1st June 2025, under the Family Act Bill, fathers now have access to 2 weeks paternity leave, and it's gone from 14 to 17 weeks for maternity leave for mothers. What impact, can you see that actually having a positive impact, or should more have been done?
Well, I mean, the Democratic Labour Party was back in the early, I believe it might have been the 70s, were the ones that championed the maternity leave for mothers. The League of Women of the Democratic Labour Party were the ones that fought for provisions within our laws that allowed for leave. You would get leave back then, but there was no pay.
There was no pay.
Right, so you got your leave with pay. The Democratic Labour Party championed the ability for women who were not married but lived with their husbands, as you know, that was more part of our cultural structure, to be able to, once that husband had passed on, that common law
The
husband
common
had
law
passed
spouse,
on,
yeah.
to be able to access inheritance through the Succession Act. I went back to the historical position to agree with you. Any of our laws that allow for the family structure that is beneficial within our cultural context, completely beneficial. Part of my platform as a candidate has been the youth and the family. In my early practice, I did quite a bit of family law, and I also did criminal law, which converged because you had a lot of young men who end up in the system, end up in criminal activity. And I find we are in a society where the immediate reaction is, you know, put them away, punish them, that type of thing. And I think that along with those type of initiatives, we need to start focusing again on how we build a society that protects these young men early within their circumstance. Because not everyone, I mean, honestly, not everyone is going to grow up in the heights and the terraces.
No.
And even then, there are those who grow up in the heights and terraces and still get into
That's
trouble.
right.
So
That's right.
part of my platform and even part of my work outside of what we're doing now, I have been involved in youth activities for quite a while, both in the church environment, but then later as an adult in the sporting environment, where I was heavily involved in football as from an administrative perspective. And you meet a lot of young men within that environment. And within our club, we've been able to even assist young men get opportunities overseas and be able to advance their lives. I mean, we had one young man, he was, I think, maybe 16 years old, and he got charged with a very serious crime. And again, we mobilized to make sure that that mistake in his life did not define the rest of his life. So, I mean, I've veered away a little from the paternity leave, but just broadly speaking, any of our policies and any of our legislation that is geared towards shoring up the family structure, shoring up opportunities for young men to do better. You may not have been aware, but during International Men's Day, I put out a message that there is a direct correlation between our education system and criminal activity for young men. And part and parcel of one of the things when I am able to walk the steps of Parliament that I am committed to doing is serious education reform from the perspective that you have the future of young men in mind. So broad-based policies that are able to shore up our family structure so that young men in all walks of life, regardless of economic or social background, have an opportunity, not just an opportunity to end up in jail, but an opportunity to have a prosperous life for themselves.
My next question was, as a father, what type of Barbados would you envision for your children? You kind of touched on it in that response.
Let me tell you a quick story then. Just what is that? I'm losing track of the days. Today's, okay, so.
The 1st of February.
The 1st of February.
Yes.
So yesterday, I spent some time in the constituency. It wasn't even my constituency. I was with another candidate lending our support as we do in the party. And I spent about an hour around a shop, 2 shops actually in the district. On my arrival, there were at least about half a dozen young men. And I heard dominoes at first, so I thought, oh, let's go and play some dominoes. I love to play dominoes. I'm not the best at it, but I love to play. And when I got there, the dominoes were not actually being played. The dominoes were being used as weights for the money that they were gambling with.
Oh, wow.
So I stepped into the midst of them and I said, hey, I thought we were going to play dominoes. He says, well, you could play dominoes if you want, but
they were rolling dice.
They were rolling dice. He said, but we could play dominoes, but you got to play dominoes for money.
For money.
I draw on that experience because we get deep in this political season and sometimes we forget the realities that are on the ground. And I have tried to make my campaign about just that. You read my slogan, or one of the mantras that I've used, a balanced democracy that works for the people. That's not just a slogan. There are people, individual lives, families that are in situations where if we descend from on high and we try to get down in there are real problems. So you ask me, what does a Barbados look like? My son was fantastic at school. I was blessed to have a son that was very dedicated to his studies. My son sat the common entrance exam at 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he's off at university now, trying to make his way in this world through education. So my heart bleeds when I see other young men his age at a shop in the middle of the day, and they're just throwing dice. We need, Stephanie, we need true policies, not just one-time payments or gimmicks. We need true policies that target not just the ills that are in Barbados now, but that are forward-looking to see how we rescue a generation. We talk a lot about education reform, and we've made the common entrance to boogeyman. And while I believe there needs to be some reform there, education reform needs to be so comprehensive that it is not just about the common entrance exam, but it is about recognizing the learning capabilities of kids from the time they enter pre-K, have those markers to know what developmental markers are, be able to have a system that recognizes if a kid comes to 6, 7 years old and there are certain markers that they're supposed to meet that they have not, but have a program now that is remedial enough to be able not to let them get lost in the system. There is no scenario that a child at 10 or 11 should reach that common entrance exam and is only able to score 10 in a math exam.
Or unable to read or write.
Unable to read and write.
The one cap fit all. I get real passionate about education because I am a teacher.
Okay.
Right? But the one size fit all cannot work.
Cannot work.
And you really, when we're talking about educational reform, we really cannot look at implementing policies where you have one teacher with 30 children who have various learning styles, and it's virtually impossible.
Many of them will get lost along the way.
Exactly.
And it's not going to be easy. We don't want to give anybody impression that there are any silver bullets.
No, it will take time.
I had a general manager when I was young. I was a financial controller at a hotel. And he and I were always at loggerheads. But there was one thing I was impressed with my general manager. He always says, what got focused got fixed. We have to get away from the rhetoric, just the talking points.
Yeah.
And we have to have people that are going to roll up their sleeves
And work.
put themselves to the task of doing real reform. I'm, as you mentioned when you started, I am in the middle, I'm just at the tail end of another master's degree. And part of my thesis in one of the modules of that degree was to create a policy document that is within your country that you can use. And it wasn't specific on what type of policy. So I wrote on education. So I actually have a full thesis policy document on how I would reform education.
Amazing.
So I'm saying to the voters, put me in the house, and it's not.
And let's see what happens.
And see what happens. But it's not only that. I am committed to continuing to work to see that implemented. Of course, if I am able to be a representative for the constituency of Christchurch South and able to be in the halls of Parliament, to be then part and parcel of that reform, certainly it will be part of my thrust as a representative.
No, currently many people will say that we don't have a lot of grassroots politicians or politicians who can identify with the struggles that, the average Barbadian or middle class persons face. So most of the elected politicians come from what we call bloodline politics. That's a fact. We have the lawyers, the doctors, the engineers, the accountants, all of them. They, it's easy for them to get a step through the door because a grandparent, an uncle, or somebody has a history of being a politician. No. What stood out to me, you started working at 18 years old. Was that out of necessity or choice?
I would say it was more out of necessity than choice. I do not come from that type of a legacy family. And I think decisions at that point in time, economic decisions had to be made as to, I'm an adult now, how do I move forward? So I did not have a lot of the advantages that your average, lawyer, doctor, whatever would have had at the time. But I put my feet to the ground and I kept going. Now I try to give my son those opportunities that I may not have been able to afford to me. But part and parcel is about using the opportunities that are before you. Yeah. And so I grew up in Silver Hill. We moved to Lodge Road, Christchurch, and later on we actually moved to St. Philip. So I know about the grassroots. If you go back to what was the Christchurch,
I think one of the main points I want the viewers to understand is that you weren't born with a gold spoon.
Oh, absolutely.
In your mouth. And more importantly, you utilize the opportunities that were presented to you. Your circumstances did not determine the pathway that you have for your future.
Absolutely.
And I think that any person watching should be inspired by that story. Rome wasn't built in a day. Step by step, you can accomplish your goals if you work towards them.
Most definitely. And it's something that I've also taught my son. Because even though now I am in a position that I can give him more opportunities, he would tell you, if you were interviewing him now, he would tell you, I have lectured speeches lined up about the appreciation and the value of things. And it's not about just the opportunity.
There's no entitlement.
Yes, there's teaching values and teaching that you have to work hard. I'll be there, but you have to work hard. Yeah.
I love that. You spent 15 years in the financial services sector, and then you made the shift to law. I want to know why you made that shift.
Well,
I'm getting all up in your business.
No, this is fine. So, my dad is a retired police officer.
Okay.
Right. And I think he'll probably frown on me for saying this, but right at 16, when I finish the CXC exams, you make a choice. Then you're going to go on to your A levels. Yeah. I had actually been accepted into community college to do the associate degree in law.
Okay.
But I think my dad wanted, the old school. No, you are in school. You have to be in school. That means there has to be a uniform on you every day, and you go to school. So I also was accepted into Commermere.
Sixth form.
At sixth form to do accounting and economics and geography. And once he was presented with those two choices,
That he took that choice.
Yeah, you are going to school. Somehow community college in his mind
Yeah.
at that time was
Yeah.
not school.
Yeah.
And, at that time, I am a Christian and I believe in God's providence. There are times when I look back, because I always did want to do law.
Okay.
And there are times when I look back and I say, did I waste those times and stuff? But now my career has taken me in a place where the blend of my financial background and then the law makes me a very good marketable person within my field. It adds to the legal background added by the financial background has served me tremendously well. So sometimes, you think but kudos to my dad who obviously knew better.
Okay. Now, can we talk a little bit about your campaign?
Sure.
All right. You went into Christchurch South after your leader left Christchurch South. And many residents may have felt betrayed, disappointed, or shocked. So you going in now, you have to do a lot of damage control and rebuild, quote unquote, trust that was lost. So what was it like when you first presented yourself?
So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to erase the premise of your question.
Okay.
The premise is that I had to do damage control.
Oh, you didn't?
No, that's actually not true.
Okay.
And it's a narrative that's pushed. And I guess it's a reasonable thought that you would have to do damage
Well,
control.
when we see certain people complaining or posting on social media, it feels as though the residents may have felt abandoned.
No, actually. So let me qualify.
Yeah.
Of course, there are going to be people who have questions as to the choice of Ralph Thorne, our leader, to
leave
the constituency of Christchurch South to go into St. John. As he has explained ably, there were ample requests for him to come to St. John.
Okay.
And he answered that call. On the ground, what I have found, I like to impose my personality on anything that I do. And the reception in Christchurch South has not really been a discussion of trying to defend the leader of the party in terms of his options. It has been, okay, you're here now, let's talk.
Okay.
Of course, there are persons who will say, well, he has gone off. But one of the things I think Mr. Thorne has explained is that before he made the decision to announce, because remember, there was a lot of rumors circulating as to his announcement. And one of the key things that he explained is that he did not want to announce leaving the constituency or announce that he's changing until he knew there was a credible candidate that could replace him in the constituency.
So stick a pin there.
Yes, ma'am.
So at that time then, you knew you were going to present yourself as a candidate for Christchurch South?
Yes, but remember within the internal structure of the party, there is a very specific process that you need to go through. And it's not just a decision of the leader of the party. It has to come from the branch. So I did have to spend time meeting with the branch apparatus, walking the constituency, making sure that it was a right fit. Then that process, you have to go then into the leadership of the party to be ratified. I imagine there's probably a similar process within the Barbados Labour Party. So it was not delay for delay's sake. It was to ensure that it was done properly, that we've gone through the right process, such that we can then be a decent representative for the constituency.
And it went well, everything was smooth and transparent.
It went very well.
Good. So fast forward now, you are in the constituency.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the word on the ground?
I think I'll go broad and then I'll come in. I think that it is undeniable that there is a general unease within the population to have one party have all the seats in parliament. There's a general unease to have power reside in one place because Barbadians understand the entire history of our democracy, certainly our post-independence democracy, has been balanced government.
Yes.
Has been one good prime minister and one good
strong opposition
leader. And not that we don't have a strong opposition leader now, but I still think that Barbadians recognize that Ralph Thorne has been a powerful voice against the government, but they recognize they want more than just one voice.
More representation.
They want more representation also at the constituency level. On the ground, that is played out consistently. But that is also coupled with what has all of us have recognized is a bit of apathy within
Yes.
the electorate.
Yeah.
And I think for several reasons. If you read the article from several of the pundits in the newspaper yesterday, a lot of them described one or two reasons why
Yeah.
there is apathy within the electorate. So part and parcel of, I think, the job of, certainly my job, certainly a lot of the Democratic Labour Party candidates, are to meet and talk to the people. I have spent a lot of time explaining and encouraging persons about the exercise of that democratic right, despite how they're feeling or despite what has been happening for the last few years. And it's not just about the Democratic Labour Party. There's a sense that any party that's in, people say, wait, it's not working.
It's not working, yeah.
And it is an opportunity to try to continue to educate the electorate. And you may see in some of my posts, a lot of it is trying to educate. A lot of the work that I have done has been to educate and say, listen, this is what good representation looks like. This is what you want in your constituency. The other part of it also, there are voters who Bajans have a very, it's an interesting quality in Barbadian politics. They're going to come out and they're saying, listen, I just want to see you.
Yes.
They may even see me online. They may even see a photograph of me.
Yeah.
No.
In person.
They want to see you.
In person.
They want to touch you.
In person.
They want to give you a hug.
Yeah, in person.
That is
Yeah.
Barbados is retail politics. You
Yes.
cannot get away with it. So that has been my experience in the constituency. And as I started off by saying, I enjoy it. It really is I met one lady, and she's pretty much a shut-in, meaning that she's at the age and her illness, she can't move around. But every time when I went in and I met her, and several of my team are older gentlemen from the branch. So I was kind of hidden behind them. And then she says, so where is the candidate? And I peek my head out. And she look up at one of my team and she goes like, but you ain't tell me he's a little boy.
Too young.
Too young. So, there are moments like that that have been, it's been puts a smile on my face. Yeah. A few weeks ago, I met this little 2-year-old. I actually posted it on my page. And I heard a very snippy comment on the page, did you stage that? No. I met this 2-year-old. And he came out. His granny was doing something, so she didn't come out to me immediately. And Stephanie, he was so intelligent.
Oh.
He was talking to me. He wasn't just there.
He was having a conversation?
He was having a conversation. So he says, what's your name? I said, my name is Corey. What's your name? He says, I am Jaden.
Oh.
I said, well, my son's name is Jaden too. And he's like, my car. And the interaction was so amazing. But what I post is I walk away from that interaction because he's 2 years old.
He's 2.
And Stephanie, he was feet away from where another young man, I believe he was just in the early 20s, was shot.
Oh, wow.
Maybe a couple of months ago. I kid you not. He was feet away, same neighborhood, to the extent that the cross
was still there.
Was there. So the juxtaposition of that interaction and understanding for us as potential leaders, for us who are the policymakers, the decision makers, to understand that juxtaposition of that little 2-year-old who has his whole life ahead of him. Intelligent. He was, listen, I gave him one of my little flyers. He looked at it, he said, this is you. He ran inside to Grandma and said, Granny, look. This guy his engagement was so amazing. But when I walk away from that, I could only walk away with a bit of sadness. Yeah. Because I said, are we now in Barbados today, have we done enough such that what happened across the street
will
from
never
him
happen again.
is not going to happen to him? And my heart bleeds for it. What can we do? What are we doing wrong? Are we just, doing rhetoric and just parties? Or are we seriously sitting down so that young Jaden, that he is protected, that he does not become a statistic? And that's what I believe. That is what my campaign is about, Stephanie. It is about the people. It is about being there. It is about making sure that when we down the halls of Parliament, that we are not there for show, that we are there for serious business to protect him and his brother and protect his grandmother in terms of her ability to get an old age pension. to protect his aunt who has to go to work and not just on minimum wage.
You are one of the candidates who are able to empathize and put yourself into, another person's shoes.
Yeah.
So when you are strategizing or formulating your initiatives for your constituency, you have a better idea of what you need to do to ensure that that particular initiative works for the people that it's intended for.
Yes.
So that brings me to the question, what have you done thus far?
Well, that's the easy answer. I'm not in the halls of parliament, and you would hear many of my presentations, and I've not been in public life, but it came to a point where I said, listen, I need to add my voice to what I believe is the voiceless. I need to add my voice and my intellect and my particular skill sets with respect to my career and all that I've done in my career. I needed to lend that voice to what's happening in Barbados. So I won't filibuster your time, but I've done work on the wiretapping bill. It was because of my advocacy, and not in the halls of parliament, my advocacy on shows like yourself, well, not your show, but shows similar to yours, going online and pointing out and educating the Barbadian people
this is what
is in this bill. And I don't want to get too politic because I'm enjoying this conversation, but it is an opportunity to say that our elected representatives must do and read and study to make themselves approve that what they're actually going in the halls of parliament representing helps their constituents. So while that is a broad-based thing that helps everybody, that helps the 8,000 voters that are in Christchurch South. I've done work on the citizenship bill. Again, it helps. It is about putting my voice into the atmosphere such that you can speak truth to power, such that power knows that somebody is watching. I fondly tell the story. I have a red pen and I'm a bit from the old school. So I'm going to print what I have off. I'm going to take my red pen and I'm going to go through it. I'm going to go through it. So these are some of the advocacy points that I've done. But also I have gone into the community. And I don't like to talk about specific initiatives, but we've spent time giving out gifts to persons. We've done a lot. We had a summer school for the kids within the western part, the eastern part of the community.
That's really good.
Christchurch South is actually quite long.
Very big,
It comes all the way from Rendezvous all the way to St. Christopher. And what I found is the dynamic is that I've had to actually do eastern policies.
Split it,
because a lot of the initiatives that will affect what is in the western area will not necessarily touch and concern. So again, so I kind of split it. So our summer camp was based in the eastern part of the constituency. So kids in that summer camp were able to come. They spent 2 weeks with us. That was awesome. Wow. Then our Christmas program was more in the west, which has the only primary school. Obviously, we invited kids from the east as well, but that was concentrated there. We gave out our hampers. We did the things that that we get involved in. Again, showing up and discussing with the residents very specific things that are affecting them and being able to lend a hand. We did some debushing. So there are a lot of different things that we've done in the community so far.
I am enjoying this conversation
I really am as well.
No, on your website, the 4 areas that you're focusing on your campaign, I think one is education, the cost of living, crime, and the integrity legislation.
Yes.
Now, government has stated in the past that the cost of living in Barbados has been impacted by various factors. We had COVID, we had the volcano, the freak storms, the hurricanes. We were thrust into a lot of uncertainty when, Trump became president, and our cost of living keeps going up. And it seems as though there is no relief. And we have parties who will present manifestos that appear nice and a little bit something for everyone. But in reality, the middle income or the middle class, there is nothing really for middle income earners. What do you think can be done? Can anything be done to reduce the cost of living in Barbados?
Again, I'm going to harken back to my former boss. What gets focused gets fixed. As we, as a Democratic Labour Party, you would have heard from Leader Thorne, part of our initiative is to reduce VAT. It was a promise that was made, and I think it is something that once a Democratic Labour Party government is formed, it is something that I think the economists will sit down and we will try to work that out, because we want to be able to give that relief to the Barbadian people, to the Barbadian consumer. There are a lot of other things that you can do that will be discussed as we go along. Again, no silver bullet, but for example, I believe that more can be done at the agricultural level in terms of food security. And let me tell you why I tap that one. And it has a bit of a mushroom effect. We have high unemployment. Well, let me rephrase that. Low unemployment is reported. But when you go house to house,
a lot of people are
unemployed. And you have to understand how those numbers and metrics work, because a lot of the time that is a derivative of having not considered persons who are not on the job market. So if persons are not actually actively in the job market, they will not be part of the calculation of the unemployment rate, as it were. So there's a bit of a nuance. It's an economic thing, but so I'm not saying that the reported number is incorrect.
But you are putting things into perspective.
You have to look at the perspective broad base, right? We have to have policies that show up our food security. You mentioned COVID. You mentioned the American administration. You mentioned there are wars as well. All of these things, extraneous factors within the world that have an impact on what happens in a small, open economy like Barbados. We import a very high percentage of what we use. So one of the things I would like to see for a DLP administration going forward is a heavy concentration on rebuilding our agricultural sector. You will hear Amoy Gilden-Bourne, the candidate for Christchurch East. She's a farmer, and she speaks quite intelligibly about this area. And I believe if we can get back to rebuilding our agricultural sector, you can have a scenario where, one, you shore up your food security as a small island. In other words, if we get another impact of another pandemic or a war that either closes or restricted supply lines, you then can have an economy where you can feed your people. It is as simple as that. But what does that also mean? That means that having a greater supply of food on the island, produced on the island, it means that it's not impacted by import duties and levies and shipping costs and those things. You can supply the local hotel industry. You can supply the local markets, the Bridgetown market, the Oisin market, Speightstown. You can supply your people. So you immediately bring down the cost of food in Barbados because you have a robust agricultural sector. What does that also do? That expands the opportunity for employment. Right.
Yes, yeah.
You get into the schools again, certainly at the secondary level, and then get back into agricultural programs within the schools. So that the idea of being part of the agricultural sector is not something that's frowned upon. It's something that people can
be proud of.
Can make a living. Again, these policies don't sit in isolation. Many of the farmers talk about predial larceny, so you have to have policies that we need to implement, protect them, and that kind of thing. There can be, listen, I'm not going to get too political. I am enjoying this. But if you can find land to give to multinational banks and multinational...
I agree that you can find land to give to the average Bajan to farm.
Correct.
So then why is it so difficult for the average person to access those types of opportunities? Because it seems so easy to give a millionaire concessions.
Yeah.
But then you would give someone like myself all types of horrors. I have to go through all this red tape.
But you said it. You've said it. It's just not accessible.
It's not accessible.
And we need to make it accessible because, and listen, put policies in place where hotels have to be serviced by the local market. You have to create an economy that's not just only reliant on tourism dollars, but an economy that creates jobs. Most people go into working in the hospitality, but we all know a lot of that is seasonal.
Yes, it is.
A lot of it is, on 1 week, off 1 week.
That's right.
So I met a constituent a few weeks ago, and she says, listen, I've worked in that industry, but I have to work 2 or 3 other jobs because I have 3. I'm a single mother. I have 3 children, and that is not enough to sustain.
Yeah.
So again, it is from the very grassroots level to where you get to the policy level, where those two things have to converge at some point.
And then all those things impact the structure of the family.
Yes. it
Because when
does.
you have a parent who has to work 2 or 3 jobs, who's going to be home to take or to ensure that the child does
Homework.
Who's there to ensure that the child actually stays inside the house as opposed to
Correct.
being on the block?
On the block, correct.
Because you at work. You are
Correct.
hoping that they're going to be responsible and stay inside.
Correct.
But chances are kids and they're going to rest if they can.
Yes.
You know, so everything has a trickle down effect. When I ask you a question, what are some of the signs that a country is in financial distress?
Crime.
Barbados in financial distress.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is at the micro level. When you see an economy that is relying on corruption and relying on crime to make ends meet, you know something is happening that is wrong in the economy. I know you had it on your list as one of the items that I point out on my website. Fun fact for you, and you may know it. The Integrity in Public Life Bill is not actually law.
No, it hasn't been. It hasn't
not been
passed.
proclaimed.
It hasn't been proclaimed.
So for your viewers, it has to be passed in the lower house.
Yes.
It has to be passed in the Senate, and it has to be proclaimed by the head of state. It has passed the lower house, it has passed the Senate, and it's not been proclaimed, which was a very specific promise. And it is those things that I think we need to start to point out to the public and understand what that means. So you have what I would call the dark economy that works in Barbados. The economy where people are finding other ways to make money because they have to.
And it may not be the legal way.
Some may or may not be legal. Some may be in the gray areas because of things like the integrity legislation that has not been passed. But it is a sign. You start by saying, these are the signs that the actual economy, even though they are good signs at the macro level, that the microeconomy, the local economy, is not working to sustain the standard of living for most of Barbadians, right? And I think that is something that needs tremendous attention paid to, right? I'm enjoying this conversation.
That is actually, I don't want to say fearful, but it makes one fearful about the future.
It does. I don't want to use the word fear. I like to
unsure.
I like to approach certainly my contribution in a positive way. And even at the ground level, when you speak to people and you tell them about what you want to do, it's always from a very positive perspective. Concerned, yes. And concerned from the perspective that you have to understand what's happening. And by understanding what's happening, you can then have policies that you're able to implement to fix the issues.
You hope that those in authority will implement policies to fix the issues.
Good. So
in instances where that does not happen, I'm going to use your words, you remain in a gray area.
You remain in gray. And I'll say this, and I'll forewarn you, this is a very political plug. I'll put it here. I'm forewarning you, in all fairness. That's why representation matters. And anytime you hear anything that I've said in the past, and certainly what you will hear from me within the next week and a half, is about representation. And I read yesterday in the paper again, the pundits have concluded that Barbados now is at a stage in its democracy and in its electoral process where, as long as there is this strong party and a perceived strong leader, that's all I need to do. And I want to say to you, and I want to say to your viewers, that that's not what our democracy is all about. We have to be willing to recognize that the only way that policies and the only way that legislation will be done to serve all the people as if there is good representation that can hold power accountable, good representation that you can stand up and be represented by your constituency representative. And that person may not be from the ruling party, but you have to have a choice, not just to think that it all resides in one person. And I think that is important for us as a democracy.
I agree.
And it is not about a personality thing. It's not about trying to vilify anyone. It is about recognizing that that is how democracy works best, you see. Because if you have power residing in one party, there are bills that are going to come to the floor of Parliament, and there have been bills that came to the floor of Parliament that had in it provisions that should never have been there, all sorts of badly drafted provisions in the bill, because they become a sense of complacency.
Yeah.
I don't have now to stand up. I'll tell you one fun story, and I told it the other night. I'll tell it to you here. When I was given advocacy over the provisions within the wiretapping bill, I was sitting in a function with a senior member of Parliament from the Barbados Labour Party. And he was there with his beautiful wife, and we were having a wonderful chat. And he turned to me and he said, "Man, Corey, you confusing the place, man. Nothing ain't wrong with the bill, man. Stop making all this noise." I said, "Sir, have you read the bill?" He said, "Well, no." I said, "Well,
Read it.
you should probably read the bill." And then we went on and had a fantastic night.
Yeah.
1:30 that morning, and I don't even know how he got my number. He called me and he said, "Corey, I just read the bill and you are correct."
Wow.
And I say that story to say, and I said it on the political platform. You have 29 members of Parliament who are debating a bill, but they have not read the bill. And if they have not read it,
How did they be?
not just how they debate it, if they have not read it, how can they make a contribution to it,
Yeah.
to the benefit of their constituents? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You understand? So
Yeah.
if I have John Brown and he's the representative from St. George South, now just picking one off the top of my head, and he has not read the bill, and there's something in there that will affect the people in St. George South,
he has no
or
idea.
Christchurch South, or St. Philip North.
They have no
He
idea.
can't make representation. So I'm saying that we have now to bring ourselves back. And I have to give it kudos to the pundit who said it. He actually said it. He said in the paper, it may be redounding to the benefit of Barbadians if they understand that representation matters. This 30-0 thing, fine. Let's get back to the business of representation. Let's get back to the business of being able to say, my guy or my woman, my girl, who I have picked for my constituency is going to go into the halls of Parliament and they're going to fight for us.
Yeah, advocate on your behalf.
They're part and parcel of a political party, yes, but they have to advocate on behalf of the people. And you want a scenario where you can trust that that person will advocate for you.
No, you are not in a bubble. And you would know that the period 2008 to 2018, many people, including politicians, refer to as the lost decade. Some may refer to it as a glorious period, depending on which side of the fence or who you're talking to. What I want you to tell me is, what do you think was the worst or the best things done by the previous administration?
Now, you will never hear me use that phrase. Because that phrase was something adopted from Japan in the 1990s or 80s, I believe. If you've done your research, you know that they have co-opted something from the Japanese economic decade. Every prime minister in the post-independence period, from Barrow all the way through to the present prime minister, save and except for the two prime ministers who would have passed away during their term. But every prime minister, and even Barrow, who passed away in 87, he would have had previous terms and he would have had to come to the electorate. Every prime minister, Stephanie, has to come to the electorate with their report card. Do you understand what I'm saying? During Frondell Stewart took reins of the party in 2010, after the unfortunate passing away of our dear David Thompson. And he steered the party into victory in 2013. So he must have been doing something right. And then we got to 2018, and Frondell Stewart had to come with his report card. And the public spoke. Do you understand what I'm saying? The public spoke. And I'm saying that to say in 2026, I am not going to discuss what the public has already spoken about.
Haha.
He has come with his
Yeah.
report card. And whether you agree or not, whether you're yellow or red, the public spoke.
That is the reality of
That's
it.
the reality. What I will caution anyone is to do not let the current prime minister now believe that we have to go back and litigate Frondell Stewart's administration
For what is happening now.
for what is happening now. Mayor Motley, the Honorable Mayor Motley, has to come to Barbados with her report card. And now Barbados needs to speak. They might very well speak and say, good, well done. Or they might say, listen, we have some problems. But there is no efficacy in trying to determine what, how you grade a prime minister, because you've already done, the electorate has already done what it is supposed to do with respect to the Frondell Stewart administration, and they spoke. The electorate now needs to look at the record of the current administration and look and see what the future is going to look like as it relates to just what you and I were speaking about, and that's representation. What has been done, how it's been doing, and listen, there are those who are going to vote for the Barbados Labour Party.
And there will be some who vote
And there will some who will vote for the Democratic Labour Party. Some of the independents and the third parties may get some of it. But all in all, it is about what's happening now. So I see no efficacy in trying to discuss, because the electorate looked at that report card and they have already said what they needed to say.
He got an F if we're dealing with grades. So now, you spent 5 years with the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, right? Okay, we know that. Now, prior to the 2026 announcement of general elections, we would have been hearing complaints or accusations about the voters' lists, people's names not on the list, or people who are on the list who shouldn't be on the list. And last week, the Prime Minister wrote to the Secretaries of CARICOM and the Commonwealth to invite independent observers to observe our general election, which is something that has never occurred in the history of any elections in Barbados. Now, you have experience in this area because you would have been to other CARICOM nations and observed their elections. And I don't think people in Barbados are aware of the process, what it entails, or what actually happens. So can you talk us through that?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And glad for the opportunity to do that, because I think we have to guard against pretending to solve a problem. As you rightly said, on 4 separate occasions, I was part of the CARICOM team to observe elections within the Caribbean. And most recently in 2025, I was actually chief of missions to observe the elections in Curacao in March of 2025. So I know what I'm talking about. The complaints that have been happening on the ground, this is not manufactured somewhere in a war room. You meet voters daily who are not on the list. So there clearly are problems. And I'm not just talking about people who are now trying to get onto the list. I'm talking about people who've been on the list for 50 years, 20 years, and all of a sudden they're not on the list. And it is not isolated, it's several persons. So obviously there are problems. When we come forward now and say, listen, there are problems, you need to extend the opportunity for people to be registered, or you need to do what you need to do to ensure that you do not disenfranchise voters. And your solution or your answer to that is, I'm going to call in observers. That those two things are night and day.
And not to cross you, because I really, really want to understand this, and I'm sure other people do as well. Then we have the representatives from the EBC who stated that they would have published a list last year, and that anyone who wanted to vote had ample time to lodge complaints or to call in, or for these errors, quote unquote, to be fixed, yet the errors still remain.
Right. So let me finish answer the first question. I'll come to that.
Yeah.
Observers, when they go into an election, they do just that. They observe. They have no power to affect any change or make any any sort of impact into what is actually happening.
What are they looking for?
When you come, you usually arrive within days before the election. So it's a bit of a short notice. And the Prime Minister did admit that it was short notice. But generally, an observer, even if just the chief of missions, will generally arrive maybe a week before the election, and the team will arrive. You will meet with the Prime Minister, the sitting Prime Minister. You will meet with the outgoing leader of the opposition, or what effect would be the leader of probably the larger parties. You meet, you discuss any issues. Those are documented, or you discuss how they're feeling about it. You get on the ground, and then you meet with civil society. So sometimes you meet with influential church groups, or you meet with other civil society groups, and you make your report leading up to the election. On election day, you, depending on the size of the team and depending on the size of the country, you are going to have actual observation at polling stations. So we have 30 constituencies. Within constituencies, you have as much as up to 10 or
boxes,
so.
yeah.
So they will not be able to see all, but what you do at that time, you do a sample and you go around and you see, and they look for things like, are they following the rules? Are people having to present their ID cards? Are they on the list? They're going to see things like in terms of any discord, is it running smoothly? Different things that you grade type of what's happening. The key to this though, is that it's just observation. And after you observe, you write a report. That report generally comes weeks after. What you will see, certainly with CARICOM, is immediately after the election, CARICOM will write just a statement. It's usually a one-pager. We were in Barbados and we observed the election, and insofar it was reasonably or fairly conducted, something very broad-based, and that is a public statement. I would have had to draft that statement as Chief of Missions to Curacao. It's a very public statement. The in-depth report, in terms of any findings and any recommendations, is usually done weeks after. It is not a public document.
Oh, wow.
It is not a public document. It is sent then to the Prime Minister that has just won. In some places, it's allowed to go then to the EBC head, what would in effect would be ECBC head. But it is not a public document. And generally speaking, the Prime Minister has the discretion whether to make it public, whether to implement any of the recommendations or ignore. Put it on a shelf in a drawer somewhere. So the whole idea of observers does not actually address what is happening now in Barbados. So that's that. That's observers. They observe and they report. To answer your question with respect to the EBC, and it's a bit of a nuance, the EBC is a constitutional body that has powers within the Constitution and specific responsibilities on the Constitution. And one of those very specific responsibilities, and I believe it's in section 41 of the Constitution, is to come up with the electoral list. They have their responsibility is to register the electors, register the voters. That is a specific task. What is actually happening now? Oh, well, let's go back a little bit. What the EBC is required to do during the intervening time between election and election, you have registering officers that go around on a weekly basis in all of the constituencies. They're registering officers assigned to different constituencies, and they go around and they continuously verify and work on the list. The law then requires that that list on an annual basis is published on or before January the 31st of every year. So the EBC's responsibility is to maintain a good list through its apparatus of its registering officers and the apparatus and functionary of the EBC. During the Trident ID card, I can call it an experiment now, that was not being done. And without further detail, a lot of problems ensued with respect to the list. So the process of coming up with a list is not sending it out to the public and say, hey, come and help us form the list.
They should have been doing it.
The list should have been done. And the idea of publishing it is really exceptions, meaning you might see somebody, my grandmother might have died, or you might see something that has happened, and there's an exception. Using that exception process to actually compile the list is problematic in itself. Do you understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So they really are responsible for a good list.
Yes, they are.
Not put out a bad list
And then
and
try
then
to
get
fix
the,
it. Yeah.
the public to stitch it together
Yeah.
for them. Do you understand the difference?
Yeah.
So the idea of, oh, we put it out and you were supposed to come. No, because the only way that the constituent that I met, who's 72 years old, who said to me, listen, I've been voting in this country for 50 years and now I'm on the list to come off as being dead. That constituent has a reasonable expectation that he's on the list.
Yes.
You understand? And the only way they can come off the list is if you have died or if you have you're residing overseas for, I think it is more than 5 years or so, for an extended period of time. So this idea of, oh, we put it out there. No, you are actually responsible for putting out a good list.
Yeah.
And I am a fierce advocate of this. In 2022, an election was called during COVID and it disenfranchised 6,000 plus voters. In 2026, if there is any chance that you have called an election a year before it is due and there's a possibility of disenfranchising voters, that should not happen.
Do you think that the election should be postponed?
Well, by law, it will not be postponed. We don't have the writ has already been issued. Parliament has been dissolved. You have to have an election, right? What I think at this stage is that every effort, bar none, should be implemented to ensure that persons are on the list. And I will go as far as to say, and we have said it on the stage, we've said it on the political platform, we are prepared to seek court orders to ensure that persons are on the list.
And that no person's rights have been infringed
That
upon.
no person have been disenfranchised.
Well, this has been a very informative interview. And I trust that the viewers would have gotten to know you a lot better, as I did. I'm warming to you. I'm not in Christchurch South, but I'm warming to you, right? And my final task for you is to remind those in Christchurch South why you should be the person that they give an opportunity to represent them.
Certainly. So to the voters of Christchurch South, you know my name. You've now, if you've tuned into Miss Chase's show, you know my face. And I have been through the constituency for months. I may not have gotten the opportunity to meet all of you, but I want to say to you today that I will fight for the rights of every constituent in the Christchurch South constituency. I have demonstrated that my advocacy, even outside of being a member of parliament, has been extremely effective to effect change and to speak truth to power. I am a young man who I believe in getting on the ground and dealing with issues at the grassroots level. My campaign has already formulated a plan. Every time I come through, Pearsons say that we only see politicians during election time. My campaign and my team, we've already formulated a plan, and I have shared that plan with some of you personally, have already formulated a plan where we ensure that representation, not just in the halls of parliament, but that we stay in constant contact with every single constituent in Christchurch South from now until elections are called again, such that we can serve you and serve you on the ground. So thank you for listening, and I hope that I can get your support as the next parliamentary representative for the constituency of Christchurch South.
And on that note, let me extend sincere thanks to you, Mr. Corey Greenidge, for joining us, a dedicated public servant, community activist, and an advocate for our future. This is The Chase Files, and I am Stephanie Chase. Until next time, thank you.